All right, I believe we are live.
Hey,
Hey, everybody. Thank you for sticking around following the screening. Although, of course, we'd love to all be together here in a theater in Philly, I can't think of possibly a more appropriate film than this one to kind of be avatars represented on a screen talking to each other. My name is Trey Shields. I'm the senior programmer at the Philadelphia Film Festival and the Film Society, and I am so honored and thankful to introduce director and writer of Survival Skills, Quinn Armstrong.
hello.
So I'm sure this film is pretty conversation stirring, especially during like the climate right now, socially, politically. So if you have any questions, be sure to send them in. But as usual, I'm gonna warm you guys up a little bit. First and foremost, I mean, there's obviously the themes in the movie. There's all this stuff going on, but I do want to start a little bit with the origin. So this was based on a short story or a short film. I apologize, a short film, and I believe it's only like 9 to 10 minutes long. And then you created
So
a feature.
yeah, so this is a trick that I did because the short actually was I got everybody together to do the short, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this short film, and we're gonna send it out and do all that. I never had any intention of sending it out or doing anything with it. The only purpose of the short was to get Stacy Keach on board.
Hmm.
Because it's a lot easier to reach out to his management and to him and be like, hey, come join us for an afternoon for a short,
Mhm.
than it is to be like, hey, this is a feature, this is a whole deal. So we did the short after the feature script had been written. Um, so which is, you can definitely tell when you watch the short. You can definitely tell that it's like, oh, this was pulled, this is culled from a much longer script. But I'm also very grateful that we did the short because for the short, we had a similar sort of VHS look, but we did it digitally.
Mm.
And one of the things the short taught us is, you can't do that. Not for, you can get away with it in a short, but not for 80 minutes. You can't have people staring at, a digital copy of a VHS filter. Uh,
So did you have Stacy Keach in mind when writing the part?
yeah,
Okay.
100%. And it's not for the reason that people think. Everybody thinks that it's because of Mike Hammer and like his sort of police roles in the past. Actually, I saw Stacy in a play in New York called Other Desert Cities by John Robin Bates. And he played a character who was essentially like a stand-in for Ronald Reagan. Um, he's the sort of patriarch of this clan. He's very authoritative. He's a former actor, all that stuff. And Stacey Keach has a pretty strong claim to being the greatest living theater actor from America. He is a stunning actor on stage and on screen. And I remember watching him in that play and just being bowled over by him. And I still am every time I see him in anything. Incredible.
And then now that we're just on the topic of casting real quick, Vayu Connell, who plays Jim, who is certainly another standout. Did you write the part for him as well?
No, so Vayu, actually, I wrote the part for me because I'm a theater actor. That's my background, and I wrote the part being like, okay, I'm going to play Jim. It'll save us some money, but we'll have auditions because the producers basically talked me into it. And everyone who came in to read for Jim, I was kind of like rooting against them a little bit, and then Vayu came in, and I was so mad. Oh, I was so upset because he was so good, and it was clear immediately that the movie wouldn't work without him because my version of Jim was much sort of colder and more kind of robotic, and the smile was more sort of fake and all that. And what Vayu does that is so amazing is he creates a character who's simultaneously a robot, an adult, and a child. And it's the child thing that really matters. The sense of like a person discovering the world, um, especially morally speaking, a person discovering the world that kind of allows you to buy into this whole arc. Because sympathizing with a police officer is tricky right now. It's a difficult time, and I think if we weren't presenting this sort of childlike character, we would have a lot of trouble connecting with him as he goes through his journey.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be a big part of my one of these questions was when writing the script, was that childlike wonder there? Because I feel like that's the important crux of his character for the relatability, because he is so robotic. So would you? I mean, you can claim you did it, or did Vayu bring it out?
No, Bayou did it 100%. I am a robot. Like I have been called this by friends and ex-girlfriends. And just in the sense that I'm pretty like even keeled emotionally. And so I look at Jim and I think, yes, he's just going through the steps and da 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 da. And you know, it's a mechanism. The story is a mechanism to show what happens with this dude. But of course, you need that childlike wonder and all that stuff because then it becomes more than just a mechanism. It becomes a journey. And every day I am thankful that Fayu played this role. I mean, not just it's not just that he's better than my version. He's better than any actor I can conceivably name. An interviewer the other day was like, well, if you could cast like, which is a weird question. He was like, if you could cast like any big name
Like
star
Tom Cruise, right?
in
Yeah.
this role, I'd be like, I literally could not think of anyone who could do this.
Yeah. So when you introducing that new element into the script that you had written, did you struggle with the tone? Because with the presentation on VHS and kind of the kind of obsession with nostalgia in the 80s right now, I feel like a lot of people might see maybe a trailer or read the synopsis for that and see him like smiling and giving the thumbs up. And they might think it's a little more quirky or satirical, which it is at times. But rewatching it after I've seen it like months ago, it really surprised me just how kind of knowing where it goes, how dark it is from the beginning in certain elements. Did you struggle to find that balance now that like Vayu was introducing this childlike wonder?
Tone is tricky and is something that I tend not to think about until the editing process. Um, for this one, it's interesting. You know, this you put something out in the world, and critics watch it, and they, you know, and your friends watch it, and people watch it, and you hear back from all these different people who see it, and it sort of refilters the movie for you, and you notice things that you didn't notice while you were making it. And I did not notice how angry the movie is. It's incredibly aggressive in retrospect. And I sort of realized like, oh, this is the reason I didn't have I didn't think about tone a lot was because I was stabbing. Like the whole thing of it being this sort of Pleasantville thing, this quirky comedy about police training videos, this parody, the fact that we sort of raise the curtain on that and it's like a Twilight Zone thing, and then we raise the curtain on that and it's a horror thing, and then we raise the curtain on that and it just ends up being this very earnest drama about domestic violence, is a series of angry stabs, which I didn't know at the time. I had no idea. I was just sort of like bopping along doing my thing.
Yeah, so that was during kind of the editing process.
Yeah, my editor, Kira Burton, I've known for years and years and years. She is stunning. She's an incredible editor. And the tone, where it works comes from her. Where it doesn't work, it comes from me. But she really kind of packaged everything, put it together, and made it all make sense.
Now, how do you see it now? Because I mean, it was edited, it was premiered at CineQuest, and that was kind of the beginning of the summer, at the beginning of COVID. How have you looked at this differently now? Has it changed with more overt discussions about police brutality?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. So we got into Fantasia the week, I think, after the murder of George Floyd and the resistance after that. And I freaked out, and I was like, we can't screen this movie. People are going to watch it and think it's this sort of propaganda thing. And thankfully, and so I was going to pull it from the festival. And thankfully, my producers talked me off the cliff. And with time and with discussion with people who know more about this stuff, I actually really like that it doesn't have any cops who are monsters. You know, I think because we talked briefly about making the abusive husband, Mark, about having him be a cop.
Mhm.
And I actually am really glad that this is a portrait of a system that pushes good people to do bad things rather than a story about bad people. Because I don't think the problem, like, there are definitely cops who are bad people, probably a disproportionate number. But for me, that's not the core of the problem. The core of the problem is a system that rewards the bad and punishes the good. And that's essentially what this movie is about, is punishing the good.
Yeah, and so talking about like a little bit of the other elements of the film, I feel like once the domestic abuse incident happens in the initial, that's kind of like the catalyst for the rest of the film, and how Jim starts to question everything. I feel like the film kind of turns into a lot of sketches in a way, or like moments. Um, and specifically thinking of like the dad one and implementing like the laugh track, what was the reasoning behind that? Were there certain homages you're going for with each sketch?
At the time, um, it was just an instinct. Um, the early versions of this script had about the domestic violence event happened, I would say, about 40 minutes in. And it was just sketches, before that. And that was, some people have rightly sort of gone like, those are kind of narrative dead ends a little bit. And, and I'm okay with that because that's from the source material. That's from, oh, hi, my cat. That's my cat, Sophie, back there. I'm instantly less interesting because the cat is now here.
Oh, come on, it's not that bad.
um, the sort of scattershot nature of certain sections is by design because it's pulling from the police training videos. Um, but that kind of sketch quality, that was one of the hardest things to balance because we really had to keep people involved, and I wanted to do just endless weirdness.
Mm.
And this is where the producers and editor and everybody has been very helpful. They're like, Quinn, you can't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
what about the story? Yeah.
tell an actual story. You can't tell a story in the last 20 minutes of the movie. You have to actually do the whole thing. And they're right, as always.
So, how much like research did you do? Like, is Smems a relic of the era?
Smens is real. Smens is from, I think it's from the Law Enforcement Guide to Satanic Cults. There's a few of the sort of weirdest police training videos you can find on YouTube. It might even be from Surviving Edged Weapons, which is the weirdest of all, and you should watch it on YouTube. Search Surviving Edged Weapons. It's insane. Smens, it didn't stand for what it stands for in the movie. I can't remember what it was, but I remember because I watched so many police training videos, and I remember watching that and just being like, you really couldn't do better than Smens? That's it sounds gross. That word sounds like it should be something very dirty. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm just checking in. If anyone has any questions, feel free to send them in. Let it make it rain like a waterfall or like a rainfall, if you will.
I'm contractually obligated to answer literally anything that you say, so you can ask me the most embarrassing personal
You
question.
get weird.
And yeah, I really, I'm under oath.
What's something that hasn't really been highlighted? Because I mean, before we went live, we were talking about you doing a number of different Q&As and conversations and interviews. And obviously this is very topical, but is there something that a lot of people have overlooked that you would want to kind of highlight?
Well, I think before I answer that, so that I have time to think about it, the one thing that I always like to mention, because I think it's one of the most interesting things, is the VHS process for this. I'm really proud of that because what we did, so through the whole movie, there are no digital VHS effects, not one. Everything is, we shot the movie digitally on an Arri Alexa, and we edited just like any production would. And then we took the final movie, we put it onto about 50 VHS tapes, and then I bought every VCR from every Goodwill in the Eastern LA area. They were all gone. They were all in my tiny little apartment. And what I did is you can pop the top off the VCR and you'll see a little thing called the drum head, which is the optical housing. That's where the movie gets read, sort of. And then I use magnets, knives, and fire to scar the tape and to, to mess it up. The problem with it is that magnets will knock the drum head off its axis after about 30 minutes. And so I had to have around 40 VCRs. There was a stack of mangled VCRs up to my ceiling for about 3 months. But it allowed me to kind of like DJ the VHS effects. So I would just play through the movie, and where I wanted like a tape wrinkle, I would scratch the thing with the knife, or I wanted some static, I'd use the magnets, or that sort of thing. And the organic quality of it created a lot of moments that I really had no idea were going to happen.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, I got a question.
right.
Call back to your prior experience with the stage. Our audience wants to know what led to your transition from theater to film.
Oh, I wish I had a actual sort of like philosophical answer for this, but essentially what happened was I was dating someone who wanted to be an editor. And so I just wrote and directed little shorts for her to edit. And then, she applied to AFI and down in LA and got in. And I was like, oh, I better figure out what I'm going to do. So I applied to USC and got in. I arrived there. I had up to that point, if you had asked me my favorite movie, I would have been like, Lord of the Rings. I don't know. I just had this weird background in theater. I knew nothing about cameras, nothing about any of that, but I knew how to work with actors and I knew how to write. And that is the sort of language of good storytelling is consistent throughout all mediums. Outside of like the story you're telling, you're just sort of arguing about form. I miss theater. It is gone now for a while. But the thing is, I'm not crazy about directing theater, and I'm not crazy about acting on film. I like acting in theater and I like directing on film, because acting on film is like eating a delicious cake with the tiniest fork in the world. You have to just like shovel tiny, and you never get to like actually dig in and do the thing beginning to end. There are some great film actors who would disagree with me, and more power to them. But I'm very glad that I've made that transition, because now I'm in a position to control the stories I want to tell more effectively. Because, directing film is like being in a lab. You're sort of surrounded by people and you're just tinkering. And people who are much smarter than you kind of give you notes and help you, and then you figure it out. And then you get to go do Q&As and people will act like you accomplished the thing when really it was a whole group of people. I have very strong opinions about auteur theory and all that, but that's probably for later.
Cool. Well, we gotta finish up, unfortunately, but I do have to ask, speaking of like your theater background, is there a stage play version of Survival Skills in the works? And what's the feature of the film?
A stage of, you would have to figure out like the VHS effect. You'd have to figure out an analogous thing. So I guess a stage version of Survival Skill, you know what it would be? It would be a musical, but only Jim would sing, and everyone else would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you singing all the time? But he would be like, there would be music and all that stuff. So look for that. We'll be hitting Broadway in 2025.
Cool. Well, and for all the audience and all those who are going to be watching this conversation later, this film will be playing in our virtual cinema sometime in November, but it'll also be playing for the rest of the fest. So be sure to tell family, friends, everybody.
Yes, and also there's going to be a VOD release on December 4th in North America. Buy it. I will make a very small amount of money, but I'll make a little money. And that money, I promise, will go to feeding my cats. And if you don't buy it, I'm not going to feed the cats. So
No.
I will ransom my no, of course not.
You heard it
But
here
yeah, check out
first.
December 4th.
Quinn Armstrong will not feed his cats. If you don't tell your friends about this film, buy it.
This is the one thing that's going to be taken away from this. I'm going to see like a little like on somebody's blog, they're going to be like, this guy is going to murder his cats.
Yeah, I'm recutting the festival trailer now. Just that good music with you saying murder cats. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Quinn, for joining us tonight. Such a pleasure to have this film. It's certainly one of the most unique, subversive films the entire year. Loved it. And hopefully see you around.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.